And we're live. All right. All right. So hello, everyone who's watching. Hello, everyone with us on this second session of this series of the deep dive into the PMBOK 8. We are today with Rusbe. I think everyone knows Rusbe already. Rusbe has been with us in the last podcast, and he will be with us in every episode. And of course, my colleague Daniel. Hey, Daniel. All right. So Rusbe is and us are waiting for Mike to join. I think Rusbe, he will join probably not late. I can see already some people started watching. Mike is in actually. Okay, he wasn't late.
Great.
Yeah. Hello, Mike. I don't know if you can. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey,
Mike.
Good to meet you.
Hey, hello, Mike. Hi. Thank you for joining. Actually, you're perfectly on time. Honestly, that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's great. All right, Mike. So we went live. Actually, we're live. It's been 1 minute since we went live. Okay. And of course, today we have with us Rusbe, who is actually the initiator of this series, and he will be with us in every episode. And we have with us my colleague Daniel. I don't know if you know Daniel or not, but he's honestly, I think.
Good to meet you, Daniel.
Same here. Nice to meet you, my friend.
Yeah. So let me make a brief introduction. I can see people started commenting. Thank you, Daniel, for taking that. Mike, you probably know about our series. To share insights of the PMBOK 8 with people. This is one of its kind series. I think since the creation of the PMBOK, whatever version. I think exactly. It's the same reaction of Jesse, to be honest. Jesse did the same. I like that. Seems like all people have the same mindset.
We've known Jesse and I have known each other a long time.
Yeah. Jesse had an amazing session last week. I think it was the session with the most engagement from people, to be honest. It got a lot of likes, a lot of comments. Really, people just loved what Jesse and Rusbe shared with them. So, of course, Rusbe and I coordinated the offline, about the different topics for each episode. And today we will go through, value creation, system for value creation, and governance. Okay. And apologies, I always say it publicly. Apologies, Daniel. I really forgot to send the link earlier, and I'm saying this publicly, Daniel. I'm really sorry for that. No. Really, last time I apologized offline. Today I'm apologizing online. I'm really sorry.
That's what we do as project managers, right?
I was picking my son from the kindergarten and rushing. All right. So just to let you know, Mike, we all usually prepare a presentation, with a few slides, just to structure the discussion. Okay, just to help people, follow through, and also us, for a better, interaction with each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. So let me just share my screen, everyone.
Ahmed, before going to the presentation, I would like Mike to introduce himself, because I know Mike's background is very fantastic, and I really enjoyed working with Mike in several sessions. For example, on the governance, we have worked together. So I would like people know what is the Mike background.
I was going to do that right after, but now let's do it first. I was going to ask Mike to introduce himself, of course. But anyway, so Mike, why don't you share, please, insights with people about your career, your engagement with PMI, and your history with the PMBOK, or any other books with PMI?
Yeah, sure. So I was ruined right from the very beginning of my career, because my very first job, like anyone over the age of 40, I think, we didn't choose project management. We just fell into it. And I fell into it by just getting super lucky and having the guy that ran the entire PMO for NASA's space station program take a chance on me. And it turned out he was also the NASA agency-wide instructor for their internal PM Academy. And so I got to learn from some really great people early on. But I had the imposter syndrome, I guess, feeling like, oh, but yeah, NASA's great and all, but they're government, and I'm sure private sector really is way ahead of the game, compared to people that leave every day at 4:30 p.m. Right? And of course, not all NASA people leave at 4:30 p.m. But when I went into private industry and switched careers to become a software engineer, I learned that software projects hardly ever had even a plan, right? And this was in the 90s before the Agile revolution really hit. But we were doing a lot of interesting things with a lot of techniques that became known later as Agile techniques. And I thought, wow, some of this is actually an improvement over what I learned at NASA. Some of it is really terrible. And again, like NASA had ruined me, right? Because they had a very detailed critical path schedule, right? And they really understood that the whole reason we're doing this is to advance humankind. Like the value delivery was always the important thing, not just the cost or the schedule or the baseline or the whatever, but the actual mission. And so I just, like I said, I was ruined at an early age with all that, but it gave me great intuition for why we do what we do and why some of us, when we do fall into it, like I did, are hooked, right? Like when you actually see the space station flying in orbit, and we all can still see it, by the way, it's been flying for 20 years now. Like I might have only had the tiniest of small roles in it, but I had a role. I helped put it there, and we're still getting value from it. And I think a lot of us in PM, a lot of PM jobs, we go do a project, the project ends, we turn it over to operations, and we move on to the next thing. It's not the type of thing you can look into the sky and say, wow, I helped with that, right? And so when I finally had the opportunity, I was actually asked to apply to be a dev team member for the PMBOK 8th edition. My initial reaction was, why would I want to do that? That just sounds like a lot of pain, a lot of process, a lot of free volunteer donated time that I could spend doing almost anything else, right? And I didn't know how many thousands of comments I would have to adjudicate from the public, but I knew there'd be some, probably more than I cared for. And long story short, they recruited a team with fantastic people like Rusbe, a lot of like-minded people that had been ruined at an early age like me. That we always had the intuitive sense that it was about the mission, the impact, the value delivery, and the cost, schedule, scope baseline is just a useful tool to maximize that value. So to be asked, hey, this is an important edition. The 7th edition was the one that said, for the first time, PM is a system for value delivery. Seems so intuitively obvious, but why did it take 7 editions to actually say it out loud, right? And what we were asked to do, Rusbe and I and our colleagues as co-authors, was to give it some actual practical applicability, right? That's great if the 7th edition helped everyone try and make the mindset shift that a number of us, already had since we were ruined. But now what about some real techniques and tactics that like even the most junior PM can take and apply to make that real? And once I realized that was the purpose of the 8th edition and that was the type of team that Jesse Fuel was building, I was all in. And I like to say I've had the phenomenal, fortune to have participated with some exceptional teams to do some really enriching endeavors, not only at NASA, but elsewhere in my career. This one was the most enriching. And it's all because of the caliber of professionals like Rusbe and Jesse. And I think, are you guys actually going to touch every single co-author in this series?
We had Gabriella a month ago or a month and a half ago. Rusbe is going to be with us. Rusbe really is amazingly helpful. I'm honest.
Yeah, you cornered the market.
When I talk with him offline, he's so busy. But Jesse, Andrea, Rusbe, we'll have almost 8 people. I think 8 people.
We have Laura, we have Alejandra, we will have Mike here, and then Eduardo, also Rich, and also I forgot the name.
Well, the audience won't know all these people until they meet them here, but
Yeah.
I will just say, again, there were like a total of 13 co-authors, if you include Jesse as the chair, and from, I think, 10 different countries, and probably over 20 industries.
Yeah.
Now that's cheating a little bit because I'm a consultant, so I myself can point to like 10 or 12 industries I've worked in, but nonetheless, I would say deep industry experience spanning many industries from all over the world, and all with all bonded with a very common foundation of PM is a system for value delivery.
Mike, you said before we moved to the presentation, really, you said something so important which caught my attention. You said, why did it take 7 books, 7 editions for the project management community to talk for the first time about a system for value delivery? Why was it mentioned only the 7th book? That takes me to the question, before you were ever involved with PMI, and I don't know for how long you know PMI. Was it like for 20 years, for 5 years, for 30 years? I don't know, but you might want to answer that as well. When did it come on your mind for the first time in your career that the organization has to provide a system for creating and delivering value, whether it's in the entire organization or even just in project management? When did that come on your mind?
So I have to confess, I was not a fan of PMI for a very long time. In fact, I didn't even know about PMI until I was a PM for about 10 years. Because again, at NASA, like, we trained our own people. We were our own project management institute, right? We had our own academy, right?
Wow.
And it wasn't until 2005 when the US federal government put a mandate out that said, for projects of a certain size, scope, and complexity, you must have a PMP certified project manager assigned to it. Once that happened, I found myself as a senior executive in a small consulting firm where we had 11 PMs and none of them were certified. And all of that work was being recompeted. And if we didn't get every single one of those 11 certified, we would lose the work. And so I said, okay, guys, I don't know why you ended up in this predicament, but it was already August, and everyone had to be PMP certified by the end of September.
Wow.
And so I said, tell you what, all 11 of you, you're coming with me. You're absolved from your responsibilities on client work all week next week. We're going to go through a boot camp together. You want a book? The company will pay for it. If you pass, you get $500. If we all pass, we all get an additional $1,000. And it's not 11, it's 12, because I'm going to lead by example.
Amazing.
And 21 days later, we had 12 PMP certified project managers.
And hang on. The question everyone is asking, actually, which book did you use? Which book did you read? Was it the PMBOK? Was it someone else's book?
We used, we didn't base it entirely on a book, but the one that most of us found the most value in was the Rita Mulcahy books.
I wanted to hear that. I really wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear it. I think I was sure. I was almost certain, yeah.
I don't think Rita's with us anymore, but I thank her and her legacy for helping with that.
She passed away 12 years ago, and she's one of the reasons why PMP is so famous. I think that, and she helped me personally, in several occasions in my career. All right. That was really, I think everyone is enjoying this introduction of yours, Mike. I can see the comments from people. All right. So, Rusbe, shall we fire it up? Shall we hear it?
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed when I have several sessions with Mike, and I'm very proud to be here with Mike. So I invite every people to enjoy the stories and the background we have on the governance. So let's start with the slides.
Okay, do you see my screen, everyone, please?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Good. So, all right, everyone. So, in this second session, we wanted to go through, you see, everyone, we're trying to take pieces, parts, and bits of the PMBOK 8, and we're trying to deep dive into them because I want to emphasize on this again. Really, I think this sentence, what I'm saying, is so important. There are For these sessions, there are two types of project management practitioners or project management people from the project management community. People who know PMI just recently. I'm talking like, about version 7 going forward, like from 2021 until now and going forward. And there are people who know PMI more than just, or earlier, way before 2021. People who know PMI since version 6, version 5, version 4, version 3, even some people from version 2 and version 1. Okay, it makes a big difference for these two types of people to deep dive into PMBOK 8. It makes a difference. This is why when we are preparing this, we're trying to balance that. Like, we're going into the version 8. At the same time, we're trying to compare that once with previous versions, like mainly version 6, and once with version 7, okay? And another time with both of them, right? So when Rusbeh and I were discussing this, we said, Rusbeh told me, Mike is the best person really to take us through the several parts from today's session. So we talked, and I will let Rusbeh even, probably start for today. It's okay. But we know that version 8 comes with more emphasis. I wouldn't say it's for the first time bringing this up, because as Mike said, in version 7 already, PMI introduced the idea of, having a system for value delivery. But in version 8, as many people expected and wanted, there is more focus, more emphasis on how that system would function, how that system would work, okay? So we want to really understand what's the perception or view of the co-authors, the entire team of the PMBOK 8. How do they perceive that system for value delivery? Whether, in this pyramid shape or in any other way, how you would like to explain it. But, because this will help people then not only know how to adapt their style of working on their projects, but even prepare for their future certification exams, such as PMP. So I don't know, Rusbeh, if you want to take this over now, or we give it to Mike.
Well, Rusbeh, you're muted.
I don't know.
Sorry. I think I want Mike to have the stage. Please start and describing the whole value delivery system, and then, if needed, I will add something.
Sure. I think maybe the easiest way to frame it is, if you think about how PMs are typically taught. They're typically taught, look, like, especially if you're like a junior PM just getting started and you've been trained in the basics, right? Typically, not always, but typically you're taught, deliver on your scope, schedule, cost baseline. We've given you the baseline, now go deliver on it. Don't ask questions, just go heads down and deliver on it. Yeah. Don't worry, or as I like to say, don't worry your pretty little head about business things. Just do the project things, right? Don't worry about value. That's not your job. Your job is to execute the baseline. And yes. Of course, what good PMs have always done intuitively, certainly what everyone at NASA did. So it's part of how I was just part of the culture that I was fortunate enough to develop, an intuition from. It's we need to regularly look at that baseline to make sure it's the highest value option. And if we don't understand what drives value, so for example, if being a month early would drive an enormous amount of value, but might cause us to go over budget slightly, we should at least have the conversation about that option, right? And project managers are the ones that are knee deep or neck deep in those details. Like, if we're supposed to really understand our baseline because we're the ones in charge of managing it, we should know when the baseline should be changed to a potentially higher value option. And that might not mean I have the authority to change it unilaterally, But I had a situation recently, actually, where a project manager knew that there was a higher value option and felt like they were not supposed to rock the boat, not supposed to, just stick to their knitting, just execute the baseline as you're told, like a good little project manager. And they didn't raise the possibility of a potentially higher value option. And the sponsor was furious, right? The sponsor said, look, I'm paying for this. I don't know the details. I'm not a project manager. I don't know how to do cost, schedule, scope trade-offs to figure out maximum value. That's what you're here for. And the project manager had never been challenged that way before. That the whole purpose of a baseline is the thing you manage to maximize the value. And you should always question it, because value is in the eye of the beholder, which means it changes, right? You might have the best, most optimized baseline imaginable 6 months ago when you kick the project off, but the probability that the value side of the equation has stayed static that entire time is probably zero. And so again, you might not have the authority to change your baseline, but you're going to be the one with, I like to say, you're the ultimate insider, right? The project managers are the ultimate insider. You're the one closest to this stuff. If you can't connect the baseline to the value proposition, well, then you're not really worth much to me, right? If you can't tell me when potentially higher value options are in front of me, where I can take my resources that I invested in as a sponsor and get a higher return on that investment, then I don't need you. And so it really is like a business imperative in my mind that the best PMs are always continually reassessing possibilities for more and more value delivery.
So, Mike, when you say, does that mean that it will come a time when the project manager will be identifying the value directly rather than waiting for the stakeholders, like the customer or whoever, like the sponsor, would approach them and say, this is what the value I'm looking for? Would it also be from the project manager side that they will try to define that value for the stakeholders by themselves?
I wouldn't use the word define, Ahmed. I would use understand.
Understand. So still
Right.
Receiving the requirements from the stakeholders and trying to maximize the value output for them.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. There's a project that was falling behind schedule at a client organization of mine some years ago. And it was a major global airline. And it was a big, complex IT project. And its purpose was to reduce unintended violations of some regulation somewhere. So it could be like a pilot works for 5 minutes longer than they should, right? And of course, we don't want pilots to be tired when they're flying, right?
Right.
We want to honor those rules. But even a 5-minute violation can trigger a big fine sometimes. Sometimes a crew would be diverted to another country, and some crew member would only have 4 months left on their passport before it expires. And that country's rules require 6 months, right? So lots of little things happening all the time that can trigger these fines. And a major global airline, those fines add up to a big pile of money. And so this IT system was designed to minimize those accidental violations, okay? And I said, great, so it's behind schedule. What does that mean? And it was January at the time. And the guy said, well, they wanted it by July. I think we're on pace for October. I said, okay, why July? I said, well, I don't know. The business just was very clear that it had to be July. So we have to recover the schedule to deliver in July. I said, okay, why? I said, well, let's go ask the business, which means they didn't have this conversation yet. So right. Long story short, talked to the business. They finally admitted that they didn't ever really want July. They wanted October, but they knew that IT is always late. So they asked for July. And then I said, okay, why October? And they said, well, it just seemed like that was the earliest that a big complex project like this could be delivered. That would be like an aggressive timeline. I said, okay, maybe so, but what if we could deliver it by July, actually? And they said, well, we don't change our crew IT systems in the middle of the summer because that's our busy flying season. It's when we make all our money. We don't want to risk making changes. So it either has to be before the summer or after. I said, okay, what if we could do it before? What if we could do it by May? And they said, oh man, if you can do it by May, here's how much money that would be worth. And I said, okay, so we looked at a bunch of options. We re-examined the baseline, and we found that if we went over budget by about 100K, we could generate many, many millions of dollars of additional value. And we delivered it by May.
Okay.
The sponsors don't know enough to really tell us this unless we're asking them smart questions. Right?
Okay. Let me add one thing. Ahmed, let me add one thing to it. Because I heard about it and there are several debates about it. The sponsor is accountable for defining the value. We know that. The portfolio manager is accountable for defining the value because it is the person's decision to initiate and start the project. But I think we need to hold project manager responsible for the value. When Mike mentioned that the project manager needs to understand the value, it means that the project manager is responsible for achieving that value. Let me give you an example. For example, just imagine that there is a construction company which is building construct some building or develop some building, and there is a department which selling those buildings. And when the project manager is constructing one of those buildings, during the design, they didn't comply with the culture of that area. So you will build or you will construct a building, but when you transfer it to the sell department, that department cannot sell those buildings because people will not buy that because it is not designed based on their culture. So the project manager is delivered the project, delivered the product, but it is not valuable. You cannot use it. And you cannot say that the project is successful. So we need to distinguish between the project management success when you are delivering something on time, on budget, and the project success. So these two are different. And in the PMBOK 8, I think we hold responsible the project manager for the value, because at last you need to have the value.
Mike said very nice expression earlier before the revolution of agile, which started more than 20 years ago, Mike. I think this is the continuity. I don't link this just like in particular to agile, but I think the revolution is continuing. Now, yes, with the PMBOK 8, we saw more updates or changes that probably better respond to the project management industry's needs. Okay, and one of them, as Rusbeh just said, is to have the project manager responsible for ensuring that there is value being created and delivered upon the early identification of value, all along with adaptation, because the project man, I don't know if this is part of PMBOK 8 or can be part of later versions, because not only identifying, creating, delivering value, but even chasing value. We might talk about that another time. Chasing value, because sometimes value keeps changing along the way in the project so constantly that sometimes we need stronger adaptability skills, if I wouldn't say like management of changes, in order to really be able all the time to run after that value and deliver. And I see that even is going, in the same direction, with PMI's mindset, which I personally have experienced in other certifications, where there is also focus on the value which is being delivered, whether as a PMO, whether as a business analyst, or whether as different other certifications. Okay. Rusbeh, is there anything we would like to add here, or we can move to the next one?
I think we can move to the next one because maybe we can go to the concept of the governance, and I think Mike liked this one.
Yeah, correct. You told me, Mike.
Yeah, and Ahmed, it ties. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say it ties directly to to the origins of the Agile movement. Okay, because I think a lot of Agilists, even today, still don't understand how to do something as basic as a cost, schedule, scope trade-off to maximize value. But they do understand when they have excessive governance on top of them, right? And in my mind, the emotional part of the Agile movement was initiated out of frustration with feeling like there's too much heavy-handed governance climbing all over me, and I'm not even being allowed to deliver the value that you want me to deliver because I'm always answering, I'm always writing up status reports and explaining variances and all this stuff, and I'm not allowed to just do what I'm here to do. And so I think in the Agile community, the word governance became like a four-letter word, right? Like, we don't need no stinking governance. The whole reason we kicked off this movement was to get rid of all of you command and control governance idiots, right? Leave us alone, right? Yeah. We can self-govern. And I think we've certainly, I felt that way in the 90s as a software guy. And it was really liberating to feel like, look, if you just leave me alone, things will turn out better, right?
You're right.
However, that is not 100% true. Because in order for self-governance to actually work and deliver the value as effective stewards of the organization's scarce resources, okay? Note, it's not my resources, it's the organization's resources, and I'm being asked to serve as a steward of those resources. So as a steward of the resources, of very scarce resources, for the purpose of generating far more value than we're sacrificing, right? Because we don't just want $5 million in value if the project costs 10 million, right? So yes, it delivered value, but the ROI is negative, and that's terrible. So when we take these concepts to self-governance, or what the right governance model is, I as an individual close to the work need some sort of signal that tells me whether my actions and decisions are actually enhancing the value or not. If I don't have that, then I can't self-govern, right? Now, that doesn't mean I need 5 layers of executives who understand the business, the business value proposition better than I do. Sometimes that might actually be helpful. But what it does mean is, if I have the right signal and you trust that I'm acting in the best interest of the organization, I can see when I'm getting closer to the target or farther away and make adjustments. And I don't need a big, all day, review meeting with a bunch of stakeholders to get that answer. Now, sometimes the stakeholders in a very large, complex organization, for example, may not agree. They may have very different definitions of value. Somebody has to harmonize a common definition so that the team can know what target they're trying to hit. Right. And if all of these stakeholders have different agendas and different priorities, which as human beings, they will, right, then sometimes it is helpful to have the protection of somebody providing some governance over me, right? In English, we call that top cover, right? Give me a little top cover so I don't get rained on with all of these differing opinions and political agendas and headaches and hassles. Sift through all that for me as a service, and then govern the project to drive to some sort of harmonized definition of value that some governance board or governance person can define for me. But even there, the whole point is it's not about control, right? The Agile movement really rebelled against command and control and the heavy-handedness. Everyone wants to be part of a high-performing team. Nothing feels better than being part of a high-performing team. Nobody is looking to sabotage the organization. Nobody is looking to make, suboptimal investment decisions, right, for their employer. I just need the right signaling mechanism. And if I can do that in a very light, simple way, I don't need governance people on top of me. If I can't do that in a very light, simple, easy to follow signaling mechanism, then I might need a bit more governance. So in my mind, it's not about governance is good or governance is bad. It's we all have governance, even if it's very light, even if it's self-governance, that's still governance. The question is, what amount of governance and what type of governance will actually enhance the value proposition of projects the most?
Yeah, correct. So let's take a step back, Mike, if you don't mind. Would you help people understand what actually governance exactly means for the project managers and the project itself?
So it always has to, if you take the portfolio context, which is almost every project, right? Almost every project fits into a portfolio context. I mean, maybe if you're planting a garden in the backyard and that's the only project you have going on all year, then maybe it's just one project and there's no portfolio. Yeah. But I would argue that first we have to have the priorities clear. Somebody has to choose the highest value mix of project investments, right? There has to be a way to prioritize and select what projects to do. Again, a given individual with one perspective close to the work may not be the most qualified to help do that, but maybe in a startup type of organization, maybe that's exactly the person that should do it, right? But somebody has to do that and has to do it in a way that actually helps the organization thrive, right? That actually helps harmonize the differing perspectives and interests and agendas to achieve the target strategy, okay? So that's a key element of governance, right? The prioritization and selection. A second one then is, in my mind, this is really the only one. Are we driving to the maximum possible ROI on these investments? Are there other options we could and should consider in the mix of projects or within each project baseline to actually drive potentially higher value outcomes? And I've never once yet in my entire 35-year project management career gone into any kind of PMO status meeting and heard anyone in any position of governance ask that question. Are we looking at options that might enhance the value proposition of the project and of the portfolio as a whole? I hear a lot about ahead of schedule or behind schedule, over budget, under budget, on scope or under scope and all that. It's really, really rare people say, yeah, but are we strengthening the value prop or weakening it? How do we know? And what signal are we using? And is it a good signal? And how do we respond to the signal if it's not going in the direction we want?
Right. If we have a project which is, let's say, part of a portfolio, at which moment is it decided whether that project should follow the structured governance, or maybe the governance itself could be tailored and it will have its own self-governance?
It's my favorite topic, so I want to answer it, but I want to give Roosevelt a shot.
All right.
I just want to add one thing. Then, Mike, you can describe it in deep. We have to understand that we don't have just one type of governance or just these two types. We need to tailor the governance based on the project complexity, based on the project scales. So we may have different type of the governance. And in the governance, we need to decide, we need to align every aspect of the project. So when we have adopt a holistic view, this principle needs to be implemented in the project. And one of those performance domains who helps us to implement the adopt a holistic view is the governance performance domain. So we are trying to build a cohesive interaction system which try to align all aspects together. So this is just not one single point of decision making. We may have different people from different side of the project which come together decide, align, and direct the project in a way that, as Mike mentioned, maximize the value.
Yeah, so maybe a good example here, if we want to talk about like heavier governance models versus lighter, right?
Yeah.
If you're building a nuclear reactor, you probably want a lot of governance, right?
Yeah.
Years and years ago, before there were automatic grading systems in schools, my wife was a school teacher, and she used to grade her students with a spreadsheet. In fact, she didn't even have a spreadsheet. She had a book, and she would be constantly getting her calculator out and calculating things, and then she'd make a mistake and have to erase something. And so she asked me if I'd build her a spreadsheet. And so I did. And that did not require a lot of governance for that project, right?
Right.
And you know what? Some of my calculations had a couple bugs in them. And some students' grades were calculated a bit off here and there. But you know what? The students caught the errors, and my wife corrected them, and there was no problem. So if we had put heavy governance on that, and by the way, heavy QA and testing, it would have delayed things so much and run up the cost so much, and the value we would have gotten would have been very small. To take the nuclear reactor example again, in the US Navy in the 1950s, when they were building the nuclear Navy, there was an admiral who is very highly regarded in US Navy circles, and many history buffs know about this guy. His name was Admiral Rickover, and Admiral Rickover was in charge of creating the nuclear Navy. And he needed a lot of governance. But he also knew that unless people developed the right habits, like the people close to the work, right? If it's your job, to monitor the cooling system and make sure that if it ever gets too hot, that we sound some alarm bell right away, right? Well, that's governance. And I, as some senior, Admiral Rickover couldn't do that by himself. He had to train people to be part of the governance team for things like that. And so he realized, I need to find ways to empower people to actually act quickly and make decisions fast, especially if there might be an emergency. And that's part of the whole governance model. It can't be a bunch of senior people that meet once a week and talk about something on whatever agenda we have. It has to be every moment of every hour of every day, all of us together, performing our roles, both execution roles and governance roles, to make sure that this system doesn't blow up.
And if I want to add something, there are some phases, there are some moments in the project that you need to have heavy governance. So maybe even during the project, you may change the size of and the rigor of the governance. For example, when you're commissioning a refinery, a factory, you may need to have more heavy governance because a bad decision may ruin everything. So sometimes in different moments, different phases of the project, you may need to have a different structure of the governance.
Okay, right. So if we would like to have a closer look on governance, and in particular the different processes of the governance performance domain in the different focus areas. Because guys, that in the PMBOK 6 we had what we call knowledge areas, process groups, and the first knowledge area was the integration, the project, managing the project integration. Okay, now we don't have that word integration. I mean, we still have it, still there, but just in the mapping table or the process group table, as we used to call it. Now it's called the mapping of the performance domains to the different focus areas. Now we call it governance, and we've got a bunch of processes to be done in governance, and we would like to look at each one of them. So what do we do in initiating, in planning, in executing, in monitoring, controlling, and in closing in relation to the governance? Okay, so I don't know if this would be your call, Mike, or who's best call.
We can start each process. You can and we can describe it. me and
Yeah.
Mike together.
So when we're initiating a project, what do we do in terms of like, the governance performance domain, Mike?
Want me to take it, Rizba?
Yes, please.
Okay. I actually delivered a training class to a client 2 weeks ago that answers this exact, it was designed to answer this exact type of question, Ahmed. And it is always make sure you understand the value proposition first. What is the bang for the buck that we expect out of this? How does it align with the organization's strategy? Do we have a rough sense, even if it's a very rough sense, of what kind of baseline we're looking at? Is it 3 months, $1 million, and this kind of project, or are we looking at something far bigger and more complex? Because if it's a really big, heavy lift, well, then it better have a really big value outcome, right? And so right away, I encourage project managers to question, not only understand the value proposition, but question it, challenge it. And not because you don't want to do the project, presumably you do want to do the project. But if you really ask some tough, hard questions that maybe some business people have neglected to ask, we might find out that this is not even a project worth doing. And if that's true, I want to learn as soon as possible. I don't want to wait till planning or executing to find this out. I want to find out before we get very far down the road at all. And if I do understand the value prop and it is strong, and maybe my challenging questions have actually helped strengthen it and reinforce it, great. Well, now I'm clear of what you're asking me to be a steward to go deliver. And if I'm clear on what the business value proposition is, then I can help my team understand it as well. Right. So in my mind, again, if you really believe, as I do, that PM is a system for value delivery, governance has to be focused on the value proposition at every single one of these phases.
But the value proposition, Mike, is that defined at the initiating level, the project initiating level, or is that defined earlier, for example, in the pre-project phase, the business case, for example?
I certainly hope it's earlier in many cases, Ahmed, but often the project manager has no role in those earlier phases.
Right.
Like there might be some ideation, right? And we talked about prioritization and selection and looking at all different options and mixing and matching different options. Most PMs are not invited into those conversations. I love it if they could be. I think they would be, with the right mindset, they can contribute meaningfully to those conversations. But if I'm just showing up at initiating, which under this model is what we're presuming, right?
Yeah.
I don't see anything on this slide before initiating. So if I'm showing up at initiating, and I'm clueless, I have no idea. I just know I've been assigned to the XYZ project.
Actually, we're handed over as project managers. We're usually, so whenever we're called up by a sponsor and they tell us, hey, you're going to be assigned to this project. And that's usually the initiating of the project. Usually they hand us over the business case document, the approved one. And they do have that briefing, we call the sponsor briefing with us, where they quickly explain to us the background, the business. Even they kind of go through the business case briefly, so we have like an idea of what is the value proposition behind that project, and then we go deeply through that business case so we can understand what is this project based on. Because in most projects we work on, we need to have an approved business case so we can have a project. Usually, like let's say the perfect model. Of course, there are other models.
Ahmed, I encourage everyone watching this webinar to apply for jobs in your organization. Because I have seen those types of organizations. They do exist, but they are rare in my experience.
I was at IBM. We used to do that, really.
May I add something? I was involved in business analysis for practitioner, the new version. And in the business analysis, we are developing the business case, helping the portfolio manager and sponsor to develop the business case. And I agree with Mike that the maturity of the organization regarding this is not high. So you may find not too many organizations that follow this pattern, but the initiating is always a stage which used as a bridge to transition the information from pre-project to the project. So it helps us to revalidate the value proposition. It helps us to be sure that there is a linkage to the business case. So I see the initiating as a bridge, as a gate, which helps us to transition the pre-project information, if exists. The concern of the Mike is there is a we are afraid that we don't have much information, or there is not enough, if there was not enough effort on the business case. So we want to see if there is anything and transform and transition those information to the project. Okay. And I just want to add something. We will have this discussion on each process regarding the naming, regarding the initiate project or phase. We changed develop project charter to initiate project or phase, because we believe it is not always a project charter in every project. And we wanted to give some alignment on the naming of the process. So, for example, you have closed project or phase, not developing the project final report or delivering the project final product. It is closed project or phase. And in the initiating, we want to be aligned with that, and we call it initiate project or phase, because you may not have project charter in every project. You may have some form of documentation, which helps us to transition the information from pre-project to the project. So you can see in the tools and technique that now we have project canvas, that you can use the project canvas to transition of the information from pre-project to the project.
Okay, so rules based, no more mandatory then to have a project charter. It can be, the project can be mandated in different other forms, right?
Yeah, it can be different for. I would say, please see the why, please see the intention, not just the documentation. So
Exactly.
it is. We want to have some flexibility, and you have in the agile, in the hybrid project, in several companies, you may have different forms of documents to initiate a project. So you need to have some forms of documentation, even a light one, because as Mike mentioned, you need to define value, or you need to grab the value proposition from pre-project, or be sure that there is a why, there is a business need behind the project.
Good. Right.
You know, couple comments to hopefully enrich the conversation further. A few things. One, I've never once seen a business case write-up that couldn't be improved, or at least one that wasn't so crystal clear that I needed to ask some questions and have a conversation to make sure I fully understood it.
Right.
Right. And through those healthy conversations, magic happens. And so a lot of times we PMs view like, oh man, they're going to make me, they're asking me to help them put together the business case for this project. That just sounds like a lot of admin. That sounds like an organization like the one Ahmed works for. You're being invited into the real conversations where the real decisions get made, where the real influence and power lies. And you as a PM have skills that nobody else there will have, right? Unless they're also really good PMs. To shape the conversation and ask questions like that airline example. How much would it be worth if we were 3 months earlier? Right? What's the value lost if we go over schedule or over budget or whatever? And usually business people, even people that write up good business cases, they don't always know how sensitive the project's value proposition is to those variables. They may not have had the conversation. And so, like, for example, sometimes Like in the airline example, it was just sooner is better and late is worse by a lot. Sometimes it's, oh, and if you don't deliver this by the end of the fiscal year, we lose an additional chunk of value. And so it falls off a cliff, right? I call it the elbow curve, right? Where there's a moment in time that if we deliver later than that, the value loss accelerates. And a lot of time business people just say, no, I just told them the deadline is this date, just deliver by that date. And we never have the conversation about, well, how sensitive is the project's value proposition to delivery by that date? What would it be worth if we could be earlier than that date? Right? Yeah. Even if all we do is retire the risk of being late, what's that worth? Right?
Yeah.
And I've just never seen a business case document that answers all of those questions by reading it once.
Right. Yeah, well, interesting. We can talk about this for long, but we need to move to planning. So now, when we move to planning, first of all, is there a prerequisite, Mike? Is there a prerequisite, before moving to planning, like to prerequisite to the planning phase, something to be signed off, to be approved, or no, there is no prerequisite, actually can move to planning and, start those two processes right there, integrating and aligning project plans. And, we're going to talk about that. And also you plan your sourcing strategy. So first about the prerequisite, and then we touch on those two processes right there.
Sure. So there's a concept it originated in manufacturing called full kit or full kitting. And in the Agile world, they call that definition of ready or DOOR.
Yeah.
And the concept is the same. It's just before we start doing work or assigning work to anyone or self-assigning work, do we have everything we need to do the work properly on the first try? If the answer is no, then more planning is needed.
Yeah.
And I include preparation with planning. Like, again, you might need if actually the notion of full kit was actually a physical kit in a manufacturing type setting. Yeah. In knowledge work, it might just be, I need some inputs, right? I need a few inputs. In the case of that simple project for my wife to do the spreadsheet that would grade her students' papers or calculate the grades, I just said, I just needed a few very basic inputs. Number one, the sooner I knew very well from the initiating that the sooner she had something better than a pencil and paper, the better. Right? Nice. Like all the extra time and hassle grading papers, keeping her up late at night was creating lots of misery. And every day sooner I get that thing to her is better. So there was a value of time. So that helped me plan because I said, okay, well, I could probably do this in a couple hours, maybe less. But I also need to know if somebody has a 90%, is that an A? Okay. What's an A minus? Okay. If you have an 89.7, do you round it up to an A or not? Right? Like, what are the rules? So there's a certain amount of business rules that go into it that I wanted before I even started, so I could get it done properly on the first try. And again, I got it done well enough on the first try within a couple hours that she could actually use it tomorrow.
Right.
And so the amount of planning there was probably about 10 minutes. And that was appropriate for that project. Another example, maybe an extreme example I like to use is well, a lot of people don't know that when the 9/11 attacks happened in New York and the buildings fell, they had closed all the bridges and tunnels, and Manhattan is an island. And about 500,000 people were trapped on that island. And they had to very quickly mobilize a rescue effort to get 500,000 people off of that island. Right. And there was no, the U.S. Navy was not standing by ready with a bunch of ships. In fact, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is a sort of a mixed, like a matrix organization of a lot of different maritime organizations. And so it had a bit of a loose command structure, which is not ideal in emergencies. The Coast Guard did have some presence there, and a Coast Guard captain took charge of the situation. And he had all the pressure in the world to just skip planning, right? Just start rescuing people. right? You got some boats, you got people in need. Time is urgent. We didn't know if there was going to be another attack following up, right? Let's get these people, and there's all this smoke that people were breathing in and getting sick. So you want to get the people out of there as soon as possible. He did not skip planning. And he made the very incredible decision, if you ask me, that in spite of all the pressure to just start doing the work, he said, wait, hold on. If we mobilize a bunch of ships and volunteers and tugboats and party boats and ferry boats to go start rescuing everyone, there's only about 5 piers in Lower Manhattan. And all those boats are going to create a massive traffic jam, and we will actually harm our efforts to rescue people. We need to get this planned and staggered and sequenced properly if we really want to achieve the mission. So he actually told all the boats over CB radio within five minutes after he took action, right after he started. His first step was all boats that want to help in this effort report to Governor's Island, and that's an island south of the tip of Manhattan. He wanted to keep the piers clear so that the operations could move with maximum speed. Again, how much planning did he take for that? About 5 minutes. And by the way, that was the largest sea lift rescue in the history of humankind. Had he skipped planning, they would have been one of the biggest humanitarian disasters in the modern era, and we all would have heard about it.
Right. Interesting. So when we say integrate and align project plans, so by project plans, we mean like the scope plans, the schedule plans, right? The risk plans, etc. Are there any other plans we refer to here?
We have several plans. Before that, we call it develop project management plan. So there was we were talking about developing a PMP, but it is not. It is not about developing a document that we call it PMP. It is not always like that. It is about gathering all the plans from several parts of the project, from the schedule, from cost, from resource, from risk, from stakeholder communication, align those plans together because there may be some contradictions or some conflicts. Align those plans and integrate those plans together, and then we call the whole plan, the whole integrated and aligned plan, which may have some change management plan, configuration management plan also included. We may have some project execution plan or any other plan that may be needed in some specific industries. We call all of those PMP. So based on that, we think that it would be much better to say what are we doing in this process. We are integrating and aligning the project plan. And as Mike mentioned, regarding the start of the planning and finalizing the planning, I would say we start with this process, integrate and align project plan. And I think the first thing we do is about how much planning do we need. It is about the tailoring, about the whole tailoring concept. And then we will finalize the whole planning with this. At least the first version of the planning will be finalized with this integrate and align project plans.
Right.
And maybe the 9/11 Sea Lift rescue story could serve as an interesting example here again, where all they had was an overarching plan, right? We need to sequence as many boats as possible and keep the piers clear. That's a plan. But then there's a communication plan. It says how we're going to actually mobilize boats into action. We're going to go on the CB radio and we're going to put out a call. And we need to be ready for the response to that call because if a lot of people volunteer, and luckily they did, we need to give them clear guidance on where to go and what to do. So now I have a communication plan and I have an execution plan, and I have to synchronize those or else I'm going to have a problem. Now, that Coast Guard captain, I've had the privilege of speaking with him many times in interviews and things. He's not PMP certified. He didn't realize that he was following this process that we're showing on the slide. But but had he not followed it, like luckily he had good intuition. But I think a lot of times we don't have good intuition and we feel all this pressure to just go do, right? And had he just gone and started doing stuff, it really would have been a disaster.
Exactly. And years later, you guys came and put on papers, your notebook, like that. Now, one of the newest processes people saw in this current PMBOK 8 version is plan sourcing strategy. Okay. That's something we probably didn't have the previous versions. So, Rusbe, how did that come? Or where did that come from? And why is it now important to plan for the sourcing strategy? And by sourcing, do you mean like financial sourcing, human resource sourcing, non-human resource sourcing? What exactly? Like,
I think it is about the concept of the procurement. There was lots of discussion regarding the procurements in our team, and also when we got comments and feedbacks from the community. So there are several perspectives regarding the procurement. That some part of the procurement can be done in the project team, in the project management team, but some part in most of the organization will happen outside of the project team, by the legal department, by procurement department, and is somehow independent of the project team. So when we were discussing regarding this together, we come to an agreement, all of us, that one aspect of the procurement is definitely done during the project by the project management team. And this is regarding the make or buy analysis or make or buy decision, that we want to decide that which part of the project we want to do it in-house in the company, and which part of the project we want to outsource. We want to give it to a vendor, give it to a contractor. So the plan sourcing strategy is about deciding which aspects of the project, which part of the project scope we want to outsource to an external company. And why we put it into the integration? Because when we want to decide about make or buy decisions, when we want to decide which part of the project we want to outsource, we consider many things. We consider time, we consider the cost, we consider the resource. So maybe we are outsourcing this part because it is more cheaper if you outsource this part, or you may have more quality or high quality if you outsource this part. So because your decision is affected based on several aspects of the project, not just one aspect, we put the concept of plan sourcing strategy in the governance, which refers to deciding which part of the project scope you want to outsource and which part of the project scope you want to do it yourself. Mike, if you want to add.
Yeah, and maybe an example might help. A few years ago, I had a university as a client, and they were doing a lot of things like building new buildings and expanding new programs and degree offerings, opening up even like a satellite campus and things like that. And all of that, of course, affected how many courses they were able to offer and to whom and at what cost or what price, right? And all that had to be like in an online IT system. And so this was a constant challenge to make sure, like, hey, will the new classroom building be done before the next semester? If so, we'd like to get full benefit of it and make sure people, we assign professors and classes to it and open enrollment for students in those classes and get all the, the payment processing figured out and all that stuff. And so it was very due date sensitive, right? If they didn't hit a certain window before the next semester started, they couldn't go forward. And then it would be a big lost opportunity for that had to wait for like a whole nother semester or maybe another year. But they couldn't always afford to have all the resources they needed on hand, like on staff as direct employees, to make sure all of that work could always get done on time. And so they developed a sourcing strategy. They planned out a sourcing strategy for not just one, but multiple projects that said, look, we're going to need more of these IT skills to accelerate the IT part of this. We're going to need some more construction skills. So we're going to contract out, we're going to develop relationships in advance with IT companies, IT staffing firms, construction staffing firms, and on and on and on. So that if we have a chance to actually take advantage of this in time for the next semester, we can. And they basically managed it as a budget buffer that they could then use to go spend on these contracted out sources, but only if needed, right? We may not need them, in which case we shouldn't spend anything on them. We should give the money back and use it for something else. And until I helped them think that through, they just had never really done it with that sort of strategic intent. They'd never really been intentional about it. They'd never really sat down to plan a sourcing strategy that fit the needs of their projects. So once they did, I think their project throughput something like doubled for only maybe 15% more cost. And the value they're able to get by selling more programs, more classes, enrolling more students was massive.
Right. Thanks, Mike. Rusbe, you said that would cover part of the procurement, but in the appendix number 4, we do have procurement dedicated to that.
Yeah, we keep the content of the procurement in the appendix because we think that some project managers need to have the knowledge, although they may not be involved in every aspect of the procurement. For example, contracting or define the contract, but they need to have the knowledge of contracting. So based on that, we keep the content on the appendix, but it is not applicable to all the projects. But regarding the sourcing strategy, I would say it is applicable to all the projects. They need to define which part of the project they want to do it themselves or which part of the project they want to outsource. And regarding that, the project team needs to do some analysis. So we put that in the planning part. But regarding the other aspects, we will talk about it later. But regarding the monitoring and controlling the procurement or conducting the procurement, we think that it is not always the project teamwork.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like among the team, just real quick on it. We had some people who have always, their entire PM careers, worked in environments where a lot of contracting happened and procurement was a major part of the responsibilities of the project manager, right? And some of them felt like if you put procurement as an appendix, then you're somehow diminishing the importance, which for them was massive. And again, more to Rusbe's point, it's not that it's more important or less important, because obviously for you, it's crucial. The question is, how is it universal? Because we're trying to make this as broadly applicable to project managers in any situation, in any context. And so that's why we felt like, let's not make the core body of the PMBOK guide longer than it needs to be if some of the audience members reading it don't need it.
And may I add, I want to add one thing. For those people who are in favor of procurement, I have to say, I think in the new PMP exam, we have more questions on the procurement, because when I was seeing the exam content outline, I saw much more content on the procurement than the previous version of the PMP. So you have the content and context on the appendix, and you have a new process regarding the and also new content regarding the procurement and plan sourcing strategy. So we have the knowledge, we have the content, but we want to say that it is not universal, as Mike mentioned.
Yeah, correct. Right, not applicable in all projects. Some companies, they've got different processes for procurement, and the project manager is not even involved. They just request what they need to request as resources, whether a human or not human resources, and the company takes care of that without any involvement of the project manager.
We have a colleague from UAE, United Arab Emirates, and the person mentioned that we always have a third-party company who is in charge of the procurement. So I didn't know that there's some models like that. So
yeah, that's very particular one. Yeah, correct. So let's say now we're done with planning, and now we're moving to the executing part of the project. Uh, Now, we in the previous version, like at least version 6, we had managing project execution, even though it used to be called monitor, no,
no,
directing
direct
project.
and manage
Yeah,
project work.
direct, exactly, direct. Yeah, it used to be called direct and manage project work. We had the project knowledge, yeah, managing project knowledge, but now we see that quality assurance is part of the governance performance domain. And I think there is some logic behind that. I don't know if one of you guys want to explain that logic.
Go first, Rizva.
Okay. Regarding the managed quality assurance, it is one of challenging subject we had during the development team discussions. So we decided to embed the quality in a scope. So this is what happened, and we will talk about it in the scope and quality performance domain, actually the scope performance domain. But when it comes to quality assurance, there were some debates that it is not just about the quality of the product. Managed quality and quality assurance is about quality of all aspects of the project, quality of the process, quality of the schedule, quality of the cost. So it is not about just quality of the product or quality in a scope. It is about quality in all aspects. So when you're talking about building the quality, it is about building the quality in all aspects. And because of that, we think that the concept of quality assurance is about process quality, and process is everywhere in all aspects of the project. Quality assurance is about doing the right things. So when you are talking about doing the right things, it is not just about the scope, it is about the risk, it is about the resource. So because of that, we think that the concept of the managed quality needs to be at the governance. And one more reason, you're talking about audits, and audit is about an independent and a structured activity. So when you are talking about the audit should be at the governance, because we want to check everything and be sure that it complies with the standards. So because of that, we believe that the concept of the managed quality assurance should be at a higher level.
Right. So when you said that actually here the quality covers even for like the quality of, let's say, the different documentation, the application of the project management itself, does it mean that there will be an audit in terms of the project governance? Are we auditing that?
In the quality assurance, we have audits because we want to check that is everything comply with the standard, with the procedures, and we want to improve those processes. So when you improve a processes, do you want to check that if people comply with the new method, with the new procedure? Based on that, you need to do some audits.
Right.
Yeah, I would say the audits can be handy if compliance is important, like building a nuclear reactor, right? You probably want a QA audit on that. But in my mind, this is again all about embedding the right amount of quality activities, quality assurance activities, quality controls, all those things in order to enhance the value proposition the most. So again, the example of my wife's spreadsheet, we had almost no quality assurance, but that was deliberate. We managed it. We managed it as close to zero as possible because we didn't need it. It would not have enhanced the value prop to spend a week on testing in that case, right? And so I think oftentimes QA professionals come in with the assumption that more is always better. And sometimes more is not better, right?
Mhm.
Often, maybe 90%, or who knows, in certain industries, it might be true that it's nearly always more is better. But more comes with a cost, right? There's a management and governance overhead to more. And you could end up harming the value proposition. A simple example, you might put the quality threshold 2 notches higher than customers even notice. And that could cost you a lot of money.
Okay, if I have a question, it's just a little off. Is the PMO, in particular the controlling PMO, anyhow involved in quality audits? I mean, when I say quality audits, I don't mean related to deliverables, but rather to the project management work itself. Is that connected anyhow?
My sense is, again, there's almost always a portfolio context to projects, right? So one of the challenges I had with being a PMBOK guide co-author is we only had to focus on project, not on portfolio, right? So yes, they did throw like an appendix on PMOs at the end, right? But I think that was more to pay homage to the PMO Global Alliance acquisition that PMI bought.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Shout out to the team.
And there are, Ahmed, there are different level of governance. So you may have some audits for the processes and quality at the portfolio level. And also you may have some audits and quality assurance at the project level. So I think it doesn't conflict. There is no conflict between those. Even in some organization, you may have a department at high level and some other department in the lower level, and all aligns together. So the quality assurance in the projects will be aligned with the one at the higher level if there's PMO or other department like that. But we had the quality assurance in the project. And I think by putting the quality assurance in the governance, we highlighted, we emphasize on the importance of the quality assurance, because the proactive mindset. In the quality assurance, we want to build the quality into the processes, not test the quality at the end. So in the quality control, you are reactive. You are testing and you want to see if it is right, if it is wrong. But in the quality assurance, you are building the quality with the proactive mindset.
Okay, great. No, I think when it comes to execution and managing project knowledge, I don't think there were many changes, unless if you correct me on that, compared to what we are used to for those two particular processes, Rusbeh and Mike. I don't know what's your take on that.
I don't recall many changes. Do you, Rusbeh?
Yeah. I just want to add one thing regarding the managed project knowledge. I saw some argument regarding that the managed project knowledge doesn't do anything with the governance.
Yeah.
But I think in the governance, you want to decide, you want to lead. And for that, you need knowledge, you need information. So I think this process is an enablement process for the governance. And you need to have a holistic knowledge about everything. And you need to contribute to the organizational governance also. And based on that, we need to have managed project knowledge here. And please consider that in the governance, we have integration in the governance. It is not just about the controlling, about the high authority on decisions. We have the integration inside the governance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good one. Right. So, and now, in parallel with execution, we will have the monitoring and the controlling to make sure that everything is going right. And what I like here, Mike, is it's no more about monitoring, controlling project work. It's about monitoring, controlling project performance, right?
Beautiful, yes. And I would go further and say monitoring and controlling the value proposition, that you should
Right.
be basing your performance against.
Exactly. Making sure you're creating
And
and delivering.
I think in the
Go ahead.
future, I might even suggest changing the monitoring or controlling terms that we've had for decades. And I don't know the right word right now, but something that basically is more like maybe monitoring, controlling, and enhancing, or reinforcing, or strengthening. To say, we're not just delivering a baseline like automatons or robots, right? We shouldn't be anyway. We should be looking for opportunities to maximize the value delivery. And in my mind, that happens in monitoring and controlling.
And enhancing, probably that's already covered by assessing and implementing and changes, because when we're monitoring, controlling, the way we're executing the plans, if we figure out there are better ways how to do the work, or we can actually deliver more value, then definitely we will have a change request in order to respond to that enhancement need, and that will be linked to the process next to it.
You got it.
And one more thing, I have challenges in several projects regarding the work-oriented culture in the projects. They want just to do some work. So the word work, project work, I think undervalued some aspects of the project. We want to be more output, outcome, and performance oriented, not just doing some works. When you are talking about monitoring and controlling project work, or regarding direct and manage project work, so you are changing the culture of the project to be more work oriented, not output oriented. And as Mike mentioned, we want to monitor and control project performance, or above that, the value delivery performance. So because of that, we wanted to emphasize on the concept of the performance regarding the value, performance regarding the deliverables, and not just about the work.
Right. Good one. Exactly. Making sure that it really meets the expectations, it's been accepted, and is delivered, or at least is delivering still the expected value. Really good one. Really appreciate this. And that goes in circle. Monitoring, controlling goes in circle with the execution until we arrive, to the end. Before just touching on the closing one, let me just really ask a small technical question, Mike and Ruzbeh. You guys heard maybe hundreds of times of ongoing projects that never could close, projects that could never end. Why? Because of the constant changes. We're executing, but through monitoring, controlling, we figure out there are needs for changes again and again and again, and projects just derail. Like they go further. Instead of it was planned for 6 months, now it's been 2 years, and we never closed it. Is there in this PMBOK 8? I'm asking like as if I didn't read it. I'm asking like as if I'm someone from the audience. Is there in the PMBOK 8, or is there going to be an update, not to the PMBOK 8, but just one day, on setting some rules for how long or until when we can still accept changes? Are there any limits? So we can ensure at least we can close or we can deliver. Otherwise, we can just go, be stuck in that loop of really being ongoing and ongoing and ongoing without ever reaching the end.
Yes, I see two parts to that, Ahmed. One is what I call the zombie projects, which, as you stated, the ones that just, you can't kill them, right?
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try, they just keep going, and it's impossible to kill. And those, of course, you have to question the value delivery there, and presumably it's probably really low, and you just need better governance, better discipline on terminations. But the other thing you mentioned was about accepting changes late in the game, which of course is one of the mantras of the Agile community, right? Yeah. We accept changes even if they're late in the project, and I think that's not quite right either. I think to be adaptable and flexible to opportunities to enhance the value proposition makes great sense. But sometimes accepting changes late can dramatically harm the value proposition.
Right.
Like, you don't want to change the design of your bridge when you're 90% done with the bridge.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah. You don't want that. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
And so
That's
again, in my mind, this is a governance question and a question about protecting and enhancing the value proposition. That absolutely, if we can keep the window open, like let's say late in the design phase, we allow more design changes before we actually, pour any concrete, or then maybe that's great. But even there, sometimes if every iteration costs money. Like if we just talk about designing and building a house for a moment, at the end, I want a house. If I iterate 142 times on the design and it takes 5 years, well, I needed the house, in 2 years, and we're not even done with design after 5 years, right? Or the opposite, which actually happened to a friend of mine a couple of years ago. Every iteration required, an architect, and the architect charged a flat fee, and the fees were building every iteration they did to do some remodeling of their home. And so the guy was saying, look, we can't keep doing these iterations. I think the design we have is fine. And the wife agreed. And then the house was built and the wife said, oh, the closets are too small. We have to redo the closets. This is unacceptable. I would have never approved closets so small. I didn't understand in the design, because I was just looking at a 3D model on a computer screen. That's different from like walking in and feeling how big it is. And so in that case, maybe a different type of design iteration was called for to make sure that we didn't have to do rework later.
Right. Well, I hope really. Yeah, Ruzbeh, please go ahead, please.
I just want to give you another perspective to answer your questions. I think there is also another perspective. Sometimes people mixed up the project and product. So you may have some products that needs lots of updates. So during the product life cycle, you may have several projects to enhance the product, to add some features to the product, and you may define that product as a project, and then you see it as a never-ending project. But you may define some releases, I think in those projects, we are not giving some identity to the releases, to the part that we would say, okay, we finished this release and now we have a new product, and now let's continue on the other aspects of the product. So in those projects, we will sometimes mixed up. Even I had a class today, and there were also some mixed up, some confusion between project and product. So that would happen because of this. And before going to the closing, I want to go to the last process of monitoring controlling, if you mind.
Yeah, please.
We had performed integrated change control, and we don't have that much of rigor in all the projects. So in the hybrid project or agile project, you may have light change control. So we changed that to assess and implement change. And in this process, we put integrated change control as a tools and technique. So if you want to have a high rigor and structured change control on your project, you may use that tools and technique, but not all projects use that forms of change control. Because when you are working on a hybrid project or iterative project or agile project, you may use different kind of change control project or change management project, change management procedure.
Right, good. You're right. And let me just say one thing before we move to closing. going back to this to the comments from Mike. Hey, Mike, if we ever had set a planning maturity model, we would never end up probably having all those zombie projects or never ending projects, because it's 90% of the time the customer says, or the sponsor or the stakeholder, whoever, oh, we forgot about that requirement, oh, we changed our minds, oh, we don't want that. Yes, it's a human, it's natural, but if we want to raise the efficiency or effectiveness of our projects, we need to set a planning maturity model, which all people involved in the project need to we need to assess their maturity level in terms of planning. So, and it will also have some recommendations, how to reach that a decent, not decent, an enough maturity level, so we can somehow be 90% certain that we will actually finish the project almost, with the pre-approved scope, with almost the deadlines, and not having projects that never end, because most of the time it's a problem with planning. And even then we tell them, we had enough time for planning, why are you asking for these changes now? And they say, oh, we changed our minds, oh, we forgot about that. Anyway, that's not the discussion for, probably not for this version, because it takes a lot of brainstorming to come up with a planning maturity model in order to reach more maturity and more effectiveness on projects. And I think for the closing focus area, I think the name remained for the same process, Rusbeh. It's still closed project or a closed phase, even though I never knew why do we say phase. I mean, logically I understand it, because anyway, there are projects with some stage gates or phase reviews, and we cannot move from one phase to another unless we, make sure that we have delivered the objectives of that current phase. And still, it's always about closing projects rather than closing phases. But have there been any updates to this particular process compared to the previous versions?
I haven't seen too much update on this process. Although if I had time, I would like to add something in this process, because in the business analysis, we had one important plan, which we call the transition plan. Transition from project to the operation. And this transition part is very, very critical. And I saw many projects that failed in this transition, because the concept of the customer acceptance, or the concept of not the operation is not ready, the readiness of the organization for accepting the final solution. So if I don't remember why we didn't do that, because there are lots of variables during the PMBOK 8 development. But when I was looking at the closing project or phase, I wish I could add the transition plan in this part. And regarding the closed project or phase, we know we have some incremental approach, or we have some agile and hybrid approach, which we may close a phase, or we may close a release in the middle of the project. So regarding that, you may have several closing during the project.
Good. Mike,
I had the same exact reaction as you. I wish we would have written something about ensuring the value is maximized in an effective transition.
Right. Well, in the PMO guide, I took the PMOCP exam, and at the end, in the last two steps in the flywheel, we need to make sure that we really have delivered the value. The value was accepted and was confirmed. We probably could have taken something like that, the PMBOK 8, because value delivery needs to be confirmed, not just in a form of not just in the form of a formal acceptance document from the customer, which anyway deliberately it says, or it confirms that value was delivered, but rather a little more focused or more emphasis on that, like really, value delivered, confirmed, celebrated, and all of that. Right. Okay. Rusbeh, I think we covered it all. Please correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yes, I think we covered all aspects we wanted to go through.
Right. So let me probably stop the sharing and go back to right here. How was it, Daniel? How did you see all this? How did you enjoy it?
Good session. Like I was actually at 9/11. I was on one of those boats that got bought.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
So was my brother.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was on a little party boat that got taken to Staten Island, and then I had to get back to New Jersey. So I didn't know that story. That puts a lot of things into perspective because it was insane that day, obviously. But
there's a YouTube video narrated by Tom Hanks that was released, really? I think, on the 10th anniversary. So it's like 14 years old now.
Check it out. Well, thank you for that. It was again, awesome session, man. This was. I have so many notes from this, like probably 1,000 pages. It feels like, and I've learned so much, and it just confirms what I've experienced. I've seen myself. How I've tried to manage projects. It's nice, again, like when we talk about it's nice to bring it forward, to kind of bring it back into the world, and just so everyone can see, because most project managers I do, they've been living this and doing this for a while. It's nice to see
the good ones. The good ones.
Yeah, let me phrase that. The good ones. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, and in my mind, why should it be limited to the people that have the gumption, the initiative, the intellect, and all that to go beyond what they were taught, or even sometimes against what they're taught?
Yeah.
Why not just teach people right?
Yeah. No, the story you told about in the beginning about the new project. Oh God, that's the last 20 years. Everywhere I see it, I experienced it myself. It was good.
Which one?
Good. When you're talking about like when what you're supposed to do when you first come in as a project manager, like stick to the triangle. Oh man, like that's exactly how it is. And even this session, for doing this for over 20 years now, I learned a lot, and it was nice again to expand because I could see a lot of I noticed a lot of the people that are watching this. I'd say like probably 50%, 10 plus years, 50% less than that, a lot newer. And I could just from talking to a lot of them, they ask a lot of the questions that you guys touched on today, just in general, but how specifically the PMBOK 8 does this.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Honestly, I'm amazed each time. When I start talking to Rusbeh and then Jesse and then you, Mike. Now it makes sense in my mind. Why were these people particularly selected? No, really, like, because when Rusbeh told me the other day, it was an application process, and I said, there must be something else behind, right? And now when I hear you guys talking, I understand the profiles now. Like, really well done, guys. I appreciate that, really.
Yeah, you're starting to see the pattern.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense now. Bro, really, thank you so much, Mike, for being so flexible, for being available. It's been an honor really having you. Rusbeh, you're a great colleague. Thank you so much, really.
Rusbeh, you're the man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm really happy that I see you here and having this session together. And I think everybody enjoyed with the stories. I am also enjoy. I am also like every other sessions we had together. It was very insightful for me.
Yeah, nice. Great.
Awesome, guys. So much, and Ahmed, thanks for the platform.
Thank you. Just a little note to everyone watching. Rusbeh, next week we're gonna have Alec.
We will have Laura and I think Alejandra.
Together, both of them.
Together.
Alejandra.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So guys, we will be talking next week. We will have another great session. Thank you so much. So, Mike, we will not keep you longer. Thank you. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you so much for your time. Really good.
Thank you so much, everyone. All right, I'm ending this stream now. Thank you, really. Appreciate so much.